Connected.
Connected futures.
Connected
futures.
Connected futures.
Connected Futures.
Hi, I'm Stephanie McCann. I'm the editor-in-chief of Connected Futures magazine. And joining me today is Mike Wade. Mike is professor of innovation strategy at IMD and is also the co-author of this book, Digital Vortex. And this is just coming out now, right?
Yeah, we released it 2 weeks ago.
Excellent. In the book, you define digital transformation. I'm going to read a portion of your definition, which is organizational change through the use of digital technologies and business models to improve performance. Break that down for us. What do you really mean by that?
So that is our definition, and it's a recognition of the fact that the technologies themselves are important, but for most companies, they're not decisive. The important thing is the performance benefits that they bring. So that's the second part of the definition. And the third part of the definition is probably the key piece, which is the organizational change. So in order to realize the benefits to organizational performance through the use of digital technologies and business models requires organizational change. And that's really, we believe, the main challenge that organizations are facing today.
So give me an example of an organizational change.
Sure. Well, maybe a technology like blockchain or an autonomous car or augmented reality can have big changes to industries and companies. So in order to take advantage of those, either as an opportunity or as a threat, those companies probably have to transform themselves, meaning they may need to replace their talent or retrain their talent. They may need to change their organizational structures. They may need to change how their people are being rewarded and incentivized. They may need to change the processes that they use. So these are the kind of the internal organizational factors that need to be taken into consideration when making a transformation.
So are we saying that due to all the digital transformation that's happening, if a company stays backwards and operates as they did in the industrial era, they're not going to be able to move their processes and their success forward?
So I wish it was that simple. Of course it isn't. And that the companies, to be successful today, they have to be bimodal, we believe. So in other words, they have to keep an eye on the core business today and make perhaps incremental improvements to that, because that's where the performance of today is coming from. But at the same time, they have to have an eye on the future and the trends and perhaps the disruption that's coming to their industries and be prepared to make big changes at the same time as they're making small changes to their core business. This is difficult to do.
So what are the biggest challenges that they're coming up against? Like what is stopping them? What's that gap that's really just stopping them?
So there are many challenges that we identify that organizations are facing. The ones I just mentioned around the processes, the people, the IT perhaps, the organizational structure, how to engage with customers, partners, and their workforce. All those are challenging. But the biggest challenge that we see is around mindset. It's around changing the attitudes of the people in these companies to understand the threats and see the opportunities. It's really difficult for people who have worked and operated in the same way for such a long time to suddenly have to think in a different way.
And that makes a lot of sense. The change is hard. Change is very difficult. But is there an organization out there that you see that's doing it really well? Who's getting through this transformation really well? And why and how?
So of course, when you think of the companies that are doing well, what comes to mind are Google and Facebook and Amazon and Netflix, these types of companies. But those companies haven't necessarily had to go through a transformation. They're born digital. So I think for the more interesting examples are the traditional companies that have somehow had to take a legacy business and then transform. Unfortunately, there's not very many examples of companies that have done that successfully. However, there are a few. For example, GE is a really interesting case at the moment. They're in the middle of a divestiture of $200 billion worth of assets. And these are some of the core assets that fueled their growth over the last 20 years, for example, GE Capital. And they're taking those assets and then transforming them into the industrial internet. So this is a wholesale transformation of a massive industrial company. Some other examples, maybe smaller examples, is the French luxury company LVMH. which has a number of luxury brands called Maison. Many of the big names that you might be familiar with, like Louis Vuitton bags and so forth. And one of their recent endeavors is to create or build a connected watch, a connected luxury Swiss watch. And you can imagine,
to compete with Apple.
Perhaps they are competing with Apple to some extent. So what they did was they took the idea of a luxury Swiss timepiece and decided to make a connected version of that, which was of course against the advice of many people in the community who said it would cheapen the brand and so forth. But they did it by making a joint venture with Intel and Google. So they will learn so much from that partnership with those organizations that as they go forward, they'll be much better prepared for future trends that might disrupt their industry.
Interesting, very interesting. So the past, fair enough, maybe past 18 months, we've heard a lot of the why and the what of digital transformation. Do I need to do it? It seems as though executives are now, okay, this is real, this is happening, and now I have to figure out how am I going to do this? What advice do you give to executives on the how to get through this digital transformation?
Yeah, I agree with you. That's the main concern of these executives today. Some time ago, maybe 18 months ago or so, they were kind of curious about digital. And when I talk about digital technologies, we're talking about technologies such as big data, analytics, connected devices, Internet of Things, social media, cloud, augmented
and bringing it
reality,
all together.
all of that. So, 18 months ago, they were maybe different, and in 18 months, they'll be different again. So it's a challenge to keep up. But these organizations understand that they need to use these technologies, but they just don't know how. And some of the results that we've had that we talk about in the book is an extremely low percentage of executives that have a plan to deal with digital business transformation. And it's not because they're not good managers, it's because they just don't know what to do. So our advice to them is that they need to become more agile. It's the core insight in the book is that companies that are going to succeed now and in the future in an increasingly uncertain world are the ones that are agile, the ones that are able to adapt and change as the environment changes.
And that agility is, breaking down layers, really kind of looking at your business process and saying, where can we trim this so that we can move a lot faster, like the smaller organizations?
That's part of it. Certainly, as small entrepreneurial organizations are gaining some of the benefits that large organizations had, they're building brands quickly, they're getting access to capital, they're getting customer bases very, very quickly. What the large companies need to do is to gain some of the advantages of those entrepreneurial startups, i.e. become more agile, experimental, better attitude towards risk, be more innovative, and all that. And we believe there are actually three things that those organizations need to develop internally in order to be more agile. These are hyper-awareness, informed decision-making, and fast execution.
So don't sit around waiting for decisions to be made. Just fail fast is what I hear a lot, is go trial. If it doesn't work, stop and reiterate.
Sure. I mean, that's a big part of it. We see that as a part of fast execution, being able to test and learn, to fail fast. Of course, people talk a lot about failure these days, but the objective is not to fail. The objective is to succeed. So failure is only useful in so much as it leads to a successful outcome. So as much attention needs to be put on failing, needs also to be put on learning, so that they learn from that failure, so the next time they don't make the same mistake.
And that makes a lot of sense. So we can't have the digital conversation without talking about security. So when dealing with security, where do you see some of the gaps that are happening? Where executives maybe not looking in terms of security, and where those gaps might be in securing their enterprises for digital?
Security, of course, is a huge challenge today. I think for me, the biggest issue with security is around attitude. is that people say that they care about security, but in fact they behave in ways that doesn't show a particular strong interest around security. So I think that security, to be successful, needs to be completely hidden away, completely transparent. Because people do not want to be inconvenienced. They do not want to have an airport experience in their daily life. So I think as much that the security can be hidden in the background, the more successful it's likely to be.
And that, again, perfect sense, makes perfect sense. All right, so let's finish this with where are we going next? I know that executives need to look out 5 years. What do they need to prepare for next in this next realm of digital transformation?
Well, I think one of the truths that's becoming more and more apparent is that it's becoming increasingly difficult to predict what the future is going to be. If somebody tells you they know where a particular industry or a particular country is going to be in 5 years,
they're lying.
They're lying. I just don't think that companies are able to do that anymore. So I think the solution is not to try and predict the next big thing, because you don't know what it's going to be or where it's going to come from. The answer is, as an organization, to become more agile, so that when that thing happens, whatever it is, an organization can make the adjustments necessary to move into that space or protect against that threat or take advantage of that opportunity. So I think really agility is the key moving forward.
So when that change happens, you can quickly adapt and move.
Yeah. If we assume that the future is going to change in a linear fashion, then I think fixed strategies make sense. But if we assume that the future is going to be unpredictable and dynamic, then I think having that fixed strategy is more likely to be an anchor on performance than it is a promoter of better performance in the future.
All right. Well, it's always great talking to you. We are here at Cisco Live, where it's very loud, but I want to thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule here at Cisco Live. And I think I wish you the best of luck with the book, and I think our readers are going to really get a lot out of picking this up and understanding where to go with digital transformation. So thank you.
Thank you. It's my pleasure.
For more insights, analysis, and the voice of thought leaders, go to connectedfuturesmag.com.